Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Raja Vallabha Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayanam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Devim Saraswatam Vyasam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Tato Jaya Mudiraya.
Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva the author. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki
Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki.
By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by the rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and thus loving service under the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact.
I'm not going to be able to remember this, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Mother Colleen does it every day. Such a nice job. I just need the book. It's okay. Thank you. So the one on the top will be for tomorrow. For our viewing audience, it's the verse on the bottom there. Can you see, Mara? You might have to scoot up a little bit. Because the one for tomorrow inadvertently got put up, so I just saved it. Okay. Ajahara. Perform. Oh, wait. Ajahara. Ajahara. Shva.
Rashva.
Medham. Trin.
Gangayam. Bhuri. Dakshinam. Sharadvatam. Gurum. Kritva. Deva.
Trakshi. Gorochara. Ajaharashra. Medam Strin. Gangayam Buri Dakshinan. Sharadvatam Gurum Kritva. Devaya Takshikocharaha. Ajaharashva Medam Strin.
Ajaharashva Medam Strin.
Gangayam Buri Dakshinan.
Gangayam Bhuri Dakshinam.
Sharadvatam Gurum Kritva.
Sharadvatam Gurum Kritva.
Devayat Rakshiko Charaha.
Devayat Rakshiko Charaha.
Ajaharashva Medam Strin.
Ajaharashva Medam Strin.
Gangayam Buri Dakshinan.
Gangayam Bhuri Dakshinam.
Sharadvatam Gurum Kritva.
Sharadvatam Gurum Kritva.
Devayat Rakshiko Charaha.
Devayat Rakshiko Charaha. Ajaharashva Medam Strin. Gangayam Bhuri Dakshinan. Sharadvatam Gurum Kritva. Devayat Rakshiko Charaha. Ajaharashva Strin. Gangayam Bhuri Dakshinam. Sharadvatam Gurum Kritva. Devayat Rakshiko Charaha. Ajaharashva Medam Strin. Gangayam Bhuri Dakshinam. Sharadvatam Gurum Kritva. Devayat Rakshiko Charaha.
Ajahara.
Perform.
Ashwamedhan.
Ashwamedhan.
Horse sacrifices. Trin. 3. Gangayam. The Ganges, the bank of the Ganges.
The bank of the Ganges.
Bhuri.
Sufficiently.
Dakshina.
Rewards.
Sharadvatam. Unto people of chariot.
unto Kripacharya,
Gurum, spiritual master, Kritva, having selected, Deva, the demigods, Yatra, wherein, Akshi, eyes, Gocharaha, within the purview. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.
I'll read it through and then we'll go back. Maharaj Parikshit, after having selected Kripacharya for guidance as his spiritual master, performed 3 horse sacrifices on the banks of the Ganges. These were executed with sufficient rewards for the attendants, and these sacrifices, at these sacrifices, even the common man could see demigods. I say you repeat. Maharaj Parikshit, after having selected Kripacharya, for guidance as his spiritual master, performed 3 horse sacrifices on the banks of the Ganges. These were executed with sufficient rewards for the attendants. And at these sacrifices, even the common man could see demigods. It appears from this verse, that interplanetary travel by the denizens of higher planets is easy. In many statements in Bhagavatam, we have observed that the demigods from heaven used to visit this earth to attend sacrifices performed by influential kings and emperors. Herein also we find that during the time of the horse sacrifice ceremony of Maharaj Parikshit, the demigods from other planets were visible even to the common man due to the sacrificial ceremony. The demigods are not generally visible to common men, as the Lord is not visible. But as the Lord, by His causeless mercy, descends to be visible to the common man, similarly, the demigods also become visible to the common man by their own grace. Although celestial beings are not visible to the naked eyes of the inhabitants of this earth, it was due to the influence of Maharaj Parikshit that the demigods also agreed to be visible. The kings used to spend lavishly during such sacrifices, as a cloud distributes rain. A cloud is nothing but another form of water, or in other words, the waters of the earth transform into clouds. Similarly, the charity made by the kings in such sacrifices are but another form of the taxes collected from the citizens. But as the rains fall down very lavishly and appear to be more than necessary, the charity made by such kings also seems to be more than what the citizen needs. Satisfied citizens will never organize agitation against the king, and thus there was no need in changing the monarchical state. Even for a king like Maharaj Parikshit, there was need of a spiritual master for guidance. Without such guidance, one cannot make progress in spiritual life. The spiritual master must be bona fide, and one who wants to have self-realization must approach and take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master to achieve real success. Once again, Maharaj Parikshit, after having selected Kripacharya for guidance as his spiritual master, performed 3 horse sacrifices on the banks of the Ganges. These were executed with sufficient rewards for the attendants, and at these sacrifices, even the common man could see demigods. This is getting a little too frequent to be comfortable, but please bless me that I can say something that's true and pleasing and beneficial for the pleasure of the Lord's Srila Prabhupada and the Vaishnavas. So I'm going to stick to the format of picking 3 points from the verse and purport and then try to elaborate on those. And so I wanted to talk first about Maharaj Parikshit and what an exalted personality that he was. And then I'll talk a little bit about Vedic sacrifices. And then lastly, I'll talk about Kripacharya, who was chosen as to preside over the fire sacrifice. So most devotees know, everyone knows, Parikshit Maharaj is actually the person to whom the Bhagavatam is being spoken. He's, of the 9 processes of devotional service, he is the Acharya of, who knows? Hearing. And Sukadeva Goswami, who spoke the Bhagavatam, is the Acharya of chanting. Very good. I taught school for 20 years. So, sometimes we have the idea that Parikshit Maharaj was engaged in his worldly affairs, taking care of the kingdom, and then he got notice that his death would happen in 7 days when he would be bit by the snake bird, and so he decided to come and sit on the banks of the Ganges and fast till death. And then Sukadeva Goswami came, and in those days he became enlightened and achieved the success of going back to Godhead. And of course that's there. But already Parikshit Maharaj, even before he had that opportunity to hear the Bhagavatam from Sukadeva Goswami, already he was a great saintly person, a great Vaishnava. Even you look at his lineage, and he was the son of Arjuna and Subhadra. Arjuna is none other than Krishna and Arjuna are said to be Nara and Narayan Rishi, great rishis that manifest in a previous age. And Subhadra, who knows who Subhadra is? Yes. Sister of Krishna and Yogamaya. So his grandparents were Arjuna and Subhadra, and then his father was Abhimanyu, who was actually a manifestation of the son of the moon god. When Krishna was going to, had been asked by Mother Bhumi in the form of a cow, and Lord Brahma, when they came to the edge of the Kajal ocean, and asked Lord Vishnu to appear in order to alleviate the burden of the earth, because so many demons had taken birth in the royal families. And also, Hridayananda makes an interesting point about the Mahabharata and Srimad Bhagavatam, this pastime of the demons incarnating, that they weren't only taking birth in the royal families, but they were actually taking birth as Rakshasas and ferocious animals, because even the demons had some sense of dharma, and it would be karmic, very karmic and inauspicious for a king or someone of the royal household to just kill indiscriminately. And the demons' plan was to actually stop the Vedic sacrifices and to kill all the sages and the Brahmins that were helping to keep this planet on the right path. So they also incarnated the demons as Rakshasas and ferocious animals, and in that way they could kill these sages and these Brahmins with immunity, in a sense, karmic immunity, because animals don't incur karma, they're just acting according to their nature. So in that way they could, slip out from under. So Maharaj Parikshit was the son of Abhimanyu, who was the son of the moon god. And when the demigods were, Vishnu agreed to incarnate and assist in the cleansing of the earth. But he also requested that the demigods come in their partial expansions to aid him. And so the moon god was really attached to his son. And he didn't want his son to go and participate. So they cut a deal with him. They told the moon god that he only has to be gone for a little while, and we'll make sure that he will be forever renowned as a great warrior, peerless warrior. So that son of the moon god appeared as Abhimanyu, who was the father of Parikshit Maharaj. And Uttara, who was the daughter of King Virat, where the Pandavas spent their last year in exile, was his mother. I think of so many ways to branch out into the Mahabharata, but I should try to kind of stick to it. So Maharaj Parikshit, the other day on Wednesday, the verse was talking about how the learned astrologers at the time of Parikshit Maharaj's birth, that they read his chart, his astrological chart, because Yudhisthira was very eager to know if Parikshit Maharaj would be up to the task of ruling the kingdom when he left. He was the only living heir. All of the sons of the Pandavas had been killed in the battle. So Maharaj Parikshit asked the Brahmins, what do you forecast for this boy? And Domya, who was the priest of the Pandavas, replied, "This boy who has been saved from death by the Supreme Lord while still in the womb will be famous as his great devotee. He will be known as Vishnu Rata, or one who is always protected by the Lord. Endowed with all good qualities, he will be like Ikshvaku, Manu's famous son, in maintaining the people. For following religious principles and for his truthfulness, he will be exactly like Ramachandra, the son of King Dasarath. He will give charity and protect the helpless. As a warrior, he will be as irresistible as the mighty ocean, possessing skills in archery equal to those of Arjuna. Indeed, O king, he will expand the fame of his family like Bharat Maharaj himself." So when Yudhisthira Maharaj heard this, then he was pacified, knowing that Parikshit Maharaj would be capable of carrying on the family tradition of acting as righteous, virtuous, and outstanding kings. So the Pandavas ruled after the Battle of Kurukshetra, they ruled for 36 years. And then, as we read in just the previous chapter of Bhagavatam, then because Krishna left the planet, then the Pandavas decided it was also time to go. They're actually his eternal associates, and so wherever the Lord is appearing in the universe to enact his pastime, they are also accompanying him. So before they left, then Yudhisthira installed Parikshit Maharaj as the emperor of the world. So here our verse today is saying how Parikshit Maharaj, he was such an exalted personality that he performed actually 3 Ashvamedha Yagyas. Ashvamedha means horse sacrifice. And Yudhisthira Maharaj, he, after the Battle of Kurukshetra, he performed an Ashvamedha Yagya, but only one actually. Like these Yagyas in the past were required so much wealth and participation that it was no easy task to do that. So actually when Yudhisthira performed his Ashvamedha Yagya, then he was wondering how can this even go on, because the royal treasuries had been completely depleted because of the Battle of Kurukshetra. Even when you read the accounts about the chariots and the weapons and the arrows, everything is like encrusted with jewels and gold and just like amazing affluence. But just to carry on this battle, it required like so much funds to, just for the battle to take place. So there was nothing left to conduct the Ashvamedha. And Yudhisthira was advised by Vyasadeva actually to perform the Ashvamedha Yagya, not for the sake of, sometimes you get the idea maybe that the kings are like flaunting their affluence, their wealth, their power, their position, and that may have been the case in some instances, but Yudhisthira actually, he was advised by Vyasadeva to perform the Ashvamedha Yagya to become cleansed of any sin or wrongdoing that he felt he may have accrued by participating in the Battle of Kurukshetra and really being the person for whom the battle was fought in order to install him as the emperor. So Vyasadeva advised Yudhisthira to send Arjuna to, there was a place in the Himalayas where a king from previous ages had also conducted, I don't know if it was an Ashrameda sacrifice, but a sacrifice, and so much gold was there that the utensils for the sacrifice and the plates and all the paraphernalia were made of solid gold. And at that time, gold wasn't such a hot commodity, and so it was just kind of like thrown in a pit, like in a dustbin. But Vyasadeva, with his mystic vision, he knew the place of where all this was being held. And so Arjuna went there, and he brought back so many elephants and camels, like loaded down with all this gold. And with this gold, then Yudhisthira could conduct the ceremony. Then Ashrameda means horse, as I said. And in previous ages, the Shakti, the potency of the Brahmanas was so great that a horse could be sacrificed, and then by the power of the mantra of the priests, the horse could be revived in a new, youthful body. So Prabhupada, we all know, Prabhupada explains that is not for this age, of course, because there aren't any Brahmins that have that potency. So we have a different sacrifice for this age of Kali Yuga. Who knows? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So even we don't have to go and find gold in the Himalayas and know the proper mantras. Lord Chaitanya has made it so accessible, this perfection of our spiritual life, by simply offering up for the pleasure of their lordships the chanting of the holy name. We can become successful in our spiritual life. So Parikshit Maharaj, such a great devotee. In fact, I started reading again by Sanatana Goswami, Brihat Bhagavatamrita, and in that Brihat Bhagavatamrita, I had forgotten this, that after Sukadeva Goswami speaks the Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj, and it's very eminent that the snake bird is coming to kill him, then his mother, Uttara, she comes, and of course she's very distraught because she knows that her son's about to die. But she's also a devotee of the Lord, and she wants to hear from him. She wasn't present at the time of the speaking of the Bhagavatam, so she wants to hear from him. So she asks him to please tell her the essence of the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is already considered the essence, but so I guess in a sense she wants the essence of the essence. So in Brihat Bhagavatamrita, then Parikshit Maharaj, he actually tells her, now is the time really for me to fix my mind, and because soon I'm having to leave this body. But he becomes so encouraged and enthused by her desire, and because he has just heard, like as devotees, we hear and then we want to share. So he conveys to her this essence of the Bhagavatam. And if anybody gets a chance to read that book, there's 2 volumes, and it's been translated by Gopi Paranadhana Prabhu, who has actually, he's departed, but such an expert Sanskritist and great devotee that really conveys the essence of Sanatana Goswami's teachings. So he's done the translations and also translated Sanatana Goswami's commentary. So that's Parikshit Maharaj.
What's the name of the book again?
Brihat Bhagavatamrita. Yogendra has it there in the back. Brihat Bhagavatamrita by Sanatana Goswami. So then, I guess I was going to talk just a little bit more about Vedic sacrifices, and our acharyas, specifically Ramanuja isn't on our line, but we have great respect for Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya, have instructed us that as Vaishnavas, that we don't necessarily discourage someone who is involved in karma kanda, ritualistic sacrifices, because the Vedas are progressive and there's something there for everyone. So if someone is at the place where they're worshipping demigods, then those demigods are actually representatives of the Supreme Lord and to be respected, by any means. And even someone who is performing these ritualistic sacrifices that a little bit I thought it was like not preaching to the faithless, or how Prabhupada said, don't discourage people, Christians who are into their particular way, because they're also on the path. So the acharyas, though, they weren't advocating any kind of animal sacrifice in this age. So I heard from Chaitanya Charan Prabhu that they would actually sometimes encourage those people to make an image of an animal from sand or clay or wood and use that. Or like now we know, like in sacrifices that are performed within ISKCON to Lord Vishnu, that different things are offered into the fire, like grains and fruit and ghee. Ghee, certainly. Actually, these Vedic sacrifices, that's one of the main reasons why the cow is so important, because of the ghee that comes from the cow, because ghee is absolutely required for a Vedic sacrifice. So that's just one of the reasons why mother cow is so important, but really a main reason. And I guess maybe I just wanted to share with you a couple of experiences that I had, not of witnessing like a yajna to the demigods, but I got the opportunity to travel with my Guru Maharaj in India on what we call safari, which is a tour of some particular part of India. Pilgrimage, I guess, would be a better word. And so when we would go with him, then when he would go then traveling, then it wasn't just for the sake of like sightseeing, oh, let's go to this temple, let's go to that temple. It would also be for the sake of preaching. And so besides going to these different temples, we would always have some preaching program in connection with them. So we went to a few demigod temples, and we were very careful to show respect and honor to, as I was saying, the demigods are the representatives of the Supreme Lord, and they're assisting him because they're in charge of all the different aspects of creation. Even Prabhupada said you can't even blink your eye without there's some demigod that's in charge of that. It's said that there's 33 million demigods. So they have a very important job. So I was trying to think of a few places that we went. One place we went was called, it was a temple of Lord Shiva, and he has a manifestation there as Nataraj, which means the king of dancers. And the pastime there is that once he and his wife Parvati were having everybody knows, like Lord Shiva, he's an expert dancer. In fact, at the end of this creation, there's a dissolution where he dances a cosmic dance, and by his dancing, everything is destroyed. He's the destroyer. Lord Vishnu is the creator, maintainer. Brahma's the creator, Vishnu is the maintainer, and Shiva's the destroyer. So his dance is so extraordinary and powerful that he destroys the universe. So he's got some moves, I guess you'd have to say. And but he and Parvati were having a competition. I don't recall the reason what provoked the competition. Maybe she wanted to show him, like, she was also pretty expert. So he would perform some, I don't know what you call them in dance, like, other than a move, that sounds a little, but some, and then she would replicate it. And then again, and she was keeping up with him. So, so then he was getting a little, like, concerned, because he's supposed to be the main man. So he did this one move where he lifted his leg and plucked his earring off from his ear. And she was like just completely dismayed. That stopped her in her tracks because of her chastity. There's no way that she could lift up her leg and take her earring off. So she conceded, okay, you're the winner. So we went there, and another Shiva temple that we went to was, there was a lingam there, Shiva linga, and because Lord Shiva is, at the one of Nataraj, there was actually a deity of Lord Shiva, but this one, it was just the linga of Lord Shiva, and it was probably close to 2 stories tall.
And Rameshwaram?
What is it?
Didn't we, that was in Rameshwaram we saw?
I don't think it was Rameshwaram. I can't actually remember the name of the
It's
place.
a big cow at the front, right? Before the
Nandi is always there, Lord Shiva's bull carrier. So it could be, I just don't recall. I just remember that they say that linga actually, it grows. And over the millennia, that it's gotten
by the water, right?
bigger. Now you're asking me all these questions.
No,
I
it
don't
was
remember.
there with you.
I don't remember.
Yeah, it's definitely Rameshwaram. That's the biggest linga there.
Mm.
And it's next to the water.
Yeah, Rameshwaram is right by the sea. And it could be that, but I think this was a different place actually, because somehow my recollection is, you were there and I were both there that year we went to Rameshwaram, isn't it? Because there were those floating stones. Rameshwaram is the place where the Vanaras built the bridge to Sri Lanka, and still they have, there's stones there that float. So I think it was a different place.
But what's the temple there? There is a big temple there.
Yeah, there's a big temple there, and so many tirthas that are in that temple. Do you remember have you been there, Mahalakshmi? You go to each well, and they're like pouring a bucket of water on you, so you're just soaking wet and getting the blessing from each place like that. So then you should maybe try to hurry up a little bit. But there are a couple other things that I wanted to say about the demigods. We also went to in Assam, near to Guwahati. There's a temple of Kamayaka, who is a manifestation of Parvati. And the pastime there is that, everyone knows from the Bhagavatam, the pastime of how Daksha offended Lord Shiva, and Sati was his daughter. And so when, in her dismay over her husband having been offended, then she decided to give up that body because it came from Daksha. So she, by her mystic yogic power, she caused her body to go up in flames. And when Lord Shiva came and saw what had happened, he became so disturbed that, I mean, there's all kinds of details to this pastime, that it's really nice pastime, it's in the Bhagavatam. But he picked up her burnt body, and in his dismay and agony, he was carrying the body here and there. And what happened as a result was that the duties that he is supposed to perform weren't happening. So the demigods came to Vishnu, and they were interceding to him, please, please, you have to do something about this. So Lord Vishnu took his Sudarshan chakra, and he cut the body of Sati into 51 parts, and it said that each one of those parts fell in a different place in India. And the yoni of Sati fell at this Kamyaka temple, and it's on the banks of the Brahmaputra river, which is said to be the only male river in India. And I went there a couple of times. The first time I went was when my boys were young, in 95, I think. And it's pretty amazing. It's in a cave, actually. And there's a water, a spring, must be maybe even an artesian well that's coming from a crack in the wall of the cave that's said to be the yoni of Sati. And then, of course, the Shiva Linga is there also. And when when my boys went out, they were wondering, like, what are all those goats running around for? And fortunately, we didn't witness any of the goat lila, but what they do is they offer sacrifice to Kamyaka at this place. Chaitanya Charan says that people that want to eat meat, they think that the deities of Durga and Kamyaka, that they like meat, that's why we are doing this to offer to them. But the fact is that Durga, Kamyaka, they are Vaishnavis. They are actually the expansions of Srimati Radharani. And so, because they want to eat meat, then that's why they do. But there is actually license for that in the Vedas. And Prabhupada explains how when a goat is sacrificed, everybody knows this, that who is sacrificing that goat is supposed to whisper in the ear of the goat, I'm taking your life now, and then next lifetime you can take my life. So the idea is these people that are performing these animal sacrifices, that they come to some realization, like maybe this isn't such a good thing to do.
Muslims do it all the time.
So then the last thing that I wanted to talk about, the last person that I wanted to talk about is Kripa Acharya. And in the verse, he's referred to as Sharadvatam, because, which means the son of Sharadvan. And Sharadvan was a great sage, actually. And somehow he was interested more in what's called the Dhanurveda, which is the science of military arts. So he was meditating, but also he had arrows, bow and arrows by his side. And he was, by his meditation and his practice of this Dhanurveda, the military arts, he was becoming so powerful that, guess what happened? Indra got a little concerned that he's going to usurp his position somehow. So this is kind of a typical story in the past times that he sent a beautiful Apsara, her name was Janapati, to seduce the father of Kripacharya. And so what happened was he woke from his meditation and saw her there, and he inadvertently passed semen. And when that happened, he realized, like, I'm not going to go there. So he left. He went to the forest. But that emission fell on some weeds, and they were parted in two. And from that parting, then twins were born, a boy and a girl. Kripa was the boy, and Kripi was the girl. And so, I mean, you see that in the Vedas, that, like, there's a lot of personalities that have, like, miraculous kinds of appearances. Like, Draupadi came from the fire, her brother Drishtadyumna came from the fire. The Pandavas are the sons of the demigods. Krishna manifests himself first as Vishnu, and then Sita came from the earth. So it's, you know, it's like non-devotees would say, oh yeah, sure. But we know that, like, there's different dimensions, there's different powers that people can have, there's different ways for people to manifest. So then what happened was Shantanu, who is the father of Bhishma, he was hunting in the forest, and he saw these infants in the forest there, and so he, out of his compassion, he's the king, he's supposed to provide for everyone, he brought them back to his palace, and he named them Kripa, which means mercy, and Kripi, which also means mercy. And so that boy, Kripa, he became one of the martial arts gurus of the Pandavas and the Kurus. And his sister, Kripi, she married Drona Acharya, who was the other more expert and famous martial arts guru of those boys. So I guess I only have 5 minutes. I want to give up some time for some questions and answers, but I guess I just really did want to make one point about how amazing it is that Kripa Acharya was actually, before Yudhisthira left, he made him, practically speaking, the Raj Guru, the Guru of Parikshit Maharaj. And Parikshit, not that he was necessarily his Diksha Guru, but to help advise him. That's what the Brahmins did, and in this case, oversee the sacrifice, the horse sacrifice. But Kripa Acharya, in the war, he fought for the bad guys. He fought against Yudhisthira and his brothers because he had become obligated to the Kurus, because they maintained him, they supported him. The Guru Maharaj said these different personalities, Bhima, Kripa, Drona, because they were eating the food of those evil people, that they were being contaminated by that, in a sense. So Kripacharya, he fought against the Pandavas. In fact, he was one of the 6 people that pretty much ganged up on Abhimanyu, the father of Parikshit Maharaj, and killed him. They didn't actually slay him, these 6. The son of Dushashan actually killed Abhimanyu. He after practically, disabling him in so many ways, then Dushashan sat and killed him with a club. He hit him on the top of the head and killed him. But the thing of that was, that's back to the reason that the moon god allowed his son to come, is that he would just be there for a little while. He would only have to experience his separation for a little while. So Abhimanyu was only 16 years old when he was killed. So Kripacharya was involved in killing Abhimanyu, the dear son of Subhadra and Arjun, and he was also involved in slaying the sleeping sons of Draupadi and Drishtajumna and the remnant of the Pandavas' army when Ashwatthama came. And Ashwatthama did most of the killing, but Kripacharya and another devotee, actually a devotee, was a general of Krishna's army, who ended up having to fight for Duryodhana as well. Those two, Kripacharya and Kritavarman, they were posted outside of the encampment where the Pandavas' army and their sons were sleeping. And so Ashwatthama told them, anybody that tries to escape, you kill. So Kripa was also involved in that. But still, after the war, it was like, I was just so amazed at how forgiving Yudhisthira was, how forgiving the Pandavas were, that they had this relationship with him, that he had been their guru, their martial arts guru, and still was in a sense, and also he was a Brahmin, that they posted him as the Raj Guru. Like, that to us, to me anyway, is practically inconceivable. Like, how do we take offense? Over what little thing we take offense? Like, the 108 things, the little things that we'll get disturbed about. But Yudhisthira, so forgiving. And Parikshit Maharaj must have been also, of course he's following the instructions of his elders, but that person was reinstated in spite of how he had participated against them. So for me that was really some inspiration to help us to have more of a forgiving mood when they were so forgiving. So I talked about Parikshit Maharaj and his shining qualities and the Vedic sacrifice and the demigods, and then ended up with mentioning about Kripacharya. So hopefully there were some lessons to be learned there. And does anybody have a comment or question? Yes, Prabhu.
So I just googled about the temple.
Kamyaka?
It says the largest Shivalinga.
Oh, okay.
Is it Ravindra?
It says Baba Kushandeshwar temple in Balasore, Orissa.
No, that's not where we went. We saw the big one.
Maybe that's the biggest temple, but what about the biggest linga?
Yeah, the biggest
It has
linga.
the biggest
It says,
linga. Well,
it says
that must be a temple where... Oh, I'll let you finish, Prabhu. Go ahead.
Can I? Okay, thank you. It says it is 12 feet long and 14 feet wide, and is carved out on a black granite, and only half of the lingam is visible. The other half has remained buried for years. There is more, but so it's in Orissa, Baleshwar. It might be not the one that you visited, but
Yeah, I think we've been to. It's in Puri. Did you say?
it's in Baleshwar.
Baleshwar.
It's in northern Orissa, bordering West Bengal.
Okay, I haven't been there.
Yeah. Okay. So
How about Trivandrum? Did you look at that? Was it in Trivandrum?
How about where?
Trivandrum.
you mean Tiruvananthapuram?
Yeah, Trivandrum, as you call it. I remember it as Rameshwar.
Yeah, I actually got to go 10 times with my Guru Maharaj. So, we saw so many things that, and they're, old person, very well I could, not remember properly.
He remembers so well.
You remember
Like
that?
had an half-year memory, I would just be like,
I want you to say something.
Can you just speak
I
louder?
want to say something in connection with what you said about Kripacharya. Yeah, when I just saw Mahabharata, which was an ancient Mahabharata, very long, written by a famous writer who just passed away, so they just put it out there. And I just saw what, what's his name, Abhimanyu was actually, when they kind of cornered him through this little thing they were doing in the battlefield, and he lost his weapon. So they were going to kill him, without a weapon. So Abhimanyu was talking to all of them, and specifically he was talking to Kripacharya. He said, I can understand all these other people who don't like us, this, that, and so he was trying to tell, oh yeah, you have no weapon, you're just talking like you know everything, little boy. He said, yeah, what are you good for, uncle, calls him. But then he turns to Kripacharya and said, you of all the people should know how to kill me. You want to kill me? Give me a weapon. I just want a weapon. None of them wants to give up a weapon, none. But Kripacharya, again, why I'm saying this is that association. They ate their food, and the association, it just bewilders you, it forgets, So he decided he told Karna, he said, Karna, give him a weapon, that's all he wants. Then we can fight, then we can see who dies, And Karna, he goes and begs to Karna. Karna is known for charity. He said, I'm asking charity. Give me a knife, a weapon. And Karna is ready to give. There comes those two guys, Duryodhana and Sakuni, talking about it. The association, they have good heart, But then when they associated with this kind of people, automatically you become very obligated, And then they pretended like they're going to give an eye, and then they went and just, and the other guy, what's his name, Dushashan? No,
Dushashan is
not Dushashan,
Duryodhana's brother.
Duryodhana.
Dushashan.
Haridhvani.
I forget his name, the son of Dushashan. Dushashan is
it's not Dushashan, it's another one, his name I forgot. He's the one who did that and started to fight.
And you notice in Mahabharata too, the Kurus they're very expert at pointing out if there's some discrepancy in the Pandavas' behavior. They've done something that they feel is unrighteous, but then they have no qualms about, as you're saying, killing Abhimanyu as he's unarmed, dragging Draupadi into the assembly, trying to destroy her.
They pick a person too, and then they just work on him. Sakuni is expert. They pick one of these guys and say, you are the one chosen to do it. You do it. And then they do it. Association,
Yeah, so...
And you choose to listen to that. You keep a good association, even a bad person chooses even a good person chooses a bad association. You just started to think, it's so important though, I learned something from that one.
It's true. Also in some versions of Mahabharata, there's a time when Duryodhana, he vows to fast till death because he's been so humiliated by the Pandavas. And when he goes into meditation, this goddess, this ghastly goddess, takes his subtle body to the Daityas and the demigods, the demons, and they give him like a pep talk. And like, you can't do this, we have big plans for you. We're going to assist you. Don't worry about it. And they tell him that they're going to enter into the bodies of Bhishma, Drona, Kripa, Karna, these people that you would expect to have some integrity, but that they're going so that they can act in these horrific ways. So I don't know, if that's really, the case, because actually with Mahabharata there's a lot of, they're called interpolations, things that have kind of entered into it, versions of the story that sometimes you're not sure exactly, if that was the case. Did you have something, Mother?
Were they again?
The Daityas and the Danavas. I don't know what the difference between a Daitya and a Danava is. Do you, Prabhu?
I don't know.
There's some demons. Demon is like the generic word for those guys. So anything else? Krishna.
Yeah, you can correct me if I'm wrong. When you were mentioning about the different warriors, like this is Kripa, yeah, that when Krishna was not going to take sides, but then he had where he was saying that, okay, one of you can have my army, only my armies, and one can have me. So Arjuna wanted his dear mouse friend, Arjuna. So wasn't one of Krishna's armies part of this commander?
Right.
Isn't that?
Yeah.
That
army.
You have to take that side with it.
Right. That army is called the Narayan. They were called the Narayanas. And when the Drona and Dhritarashtra and Arjuna came to ask Krishna for help, then we know the story how Krishna saw Arjuna first, and so he got to choose first, either Krishna or his army. And of course, Arjuna chose Krishna, but Krishna stipulated also, but I'm not going to fight, I won't take up weapons. But Arjuna knew that, and because of his love for Krishna, wherever Krishna is, there is victory. So he chose Arjuna, and then, he chose Krishna, and so then Duryodhana is really like, oh, I really wanted Krishna, but in his, he's like, I get the army. And so this Kritavarman, who I said helped Kripa to slay the Pandavas' army as they came from the encampment, he was the general of Krishna's army, the Narayanas. But they were so dedicated to their vow and their word and their whoever they had vowed to support, that Kritavarman even succumbed to that, or they were perceiving it as okay, this is my duty. I swore allegiance to the bad guys, so I got to follow it through. So even Kritavarman went back to Dwarka and was reinstated, and because it wasn't his choice that he fight against the Pandavas, but that's how it happened. And then we always say this too, even the bad guys, they're so expert, they played their parts so expertly that 5,000 years later we're still talking about them. So they were also serving in that way. Shakuni, wow, that guy, he had it down, for being wicked, evil. Dhritarashtra, so weak-minded and attached and like that. So even they were serving in a sense.
My wonder is that how did Vidura stay like that with all of them?
Because
he never got
he always thought that he could somehow redeem his brother Dhritarashtra. That was kind of his job to.
But to live with all those people every day, constantly, amazing.
He had his own palace and his wife was there, and so maybe he didn't eat that food.
I don't know.
Krishna's plan. It was Krishna's plan, so he could talk to Dhritarashtra to get him out of this situation that he was in, and try to get him to understand that he needs to be renounced. So there's something.
What else, Martha?
Also, too, with Vidura, we can also see, too, that the lesson of even if you're in that association, you don't take the association, you're giving the association.
Exactly.
And so that's what Vidura did,
Exactly.
stayed with this association.
Even though they didn't care for it.
And he actually left, and he went on pilgrimage when the time for the war came, because he didn't want to have to participate. So he just went on pilgrimage. Balaram also just left and went on pilgrimage.
They didn't care for all his stuff because they always never looked upon him. They always looked down on him of his
Right.
birth.
Yeah, that was there, but they also appreciated him for like his intelligence and his virtue. And
Who? The Pandava, the Duryodhana?
yeah, even the bad guys appreciated Vidura. Vidura is an incarnation of Yamaraj, the god of justice.
And also one more thing, when it comes
Okay.
to my mind, we're talking about Abhimana, in the, I know you can explain it better, Battle of Sixers, when Karna had his wheel stuck in the thing, and they were thinking, well, we should pardon, try, but then they were saying, no, you didn't do anything about Abhimana when he was attacked by all those
Right.
men and everything like that, so.
Yeah, Krishna actually calls them out on it. Oh, Karna, you're such a moralist at this point in time. Don't wait. But what about all those other times, right? Exactly. Okay, thank you, devotees. Srila Prabhupada ki,
Jai.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki.
Jai.
22.